Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania is currently sitting at 48% rotten on Rotten Tomatoes. It has a B cinema score, which is the same as movies like Batman vs. Superman and The Eternals, and it's currently ranked among users on Letterboxd as the 4th worst MCU project of all time. And this is leaving me asking, why is this movie getting all this hate? Now, obviously, I am a huge MCU fan, but I am not a blind defender of the MCU. Plenty of movies I will openly admit are just terrible, especially lately. They have been on a missing train with a lot of these movies, but I'll put it up right here. I gave Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania a 4 out of 5 stars. I really enjoyed myself, so I want to dig into some reasons why I really enjoyed this movie and why I think others didn't. First up is expectations. This has been a huge problem for the MCU ever since Endgame, and it's only been getting worse ever since. The height of this obviously was after Endgame when Multiverse of Madness came out, and everybody was expecting to see all these different variants of Iron Man and all these different characters and X-Men, and then we got the movie, and that's not really what we got at all. And Multiverse of Madness is another really polarizing movie, just like this one. People either really love it or really hate it, and I'm a person that really liked Multiverse of Madness, and I also really liked Ant-Man Quantumania, and I feel like that correlates a lot. However you felt about that movie is really how you're going to feel about this movie. Because I personally went into this movie expecting another Ant-Man adventure to focus more on kind of the family aspect from the trailers with Cassie, which is exactly what I got. We got to see Kang and his backstory, his origin, and what all his variants are all about, and I got that too. But I've seen a lot of videos of people complaining that this movie wasn't an Avengers level movie, Kang's not an Avengers level threat, and I really don't know where people were getting that from. Yes, Kang is going to be the next Avengers actual villain, but this is the very first time we're seeing him outside a very small amount of screen time in Loki. This is his first appearance of one variant of Kang, who still showed to be very powerful. Yes, is how we got defeated a little bit on the dumb side. It is, I will admit it, but it's an Ant-Man movie, and you're really complaining that ants won the day. And personally, I still found Kang to be a threatening villain. I thought Jonathan Majors gave his all in this performance, and I'm really excited to see more of him in the future. And that's exactly what this did. It gave me a great story about Kang and Ant-Man, I felt like, and then it gave me hope for the future of Kang being the main big bad villain. But a lot of people, I feel like, came into this expecting him to be just Thanos right off the rip with the Infinity Stones, just destroying everything in this movie alone. And I feel like people just kind of forgot that the entire MCU before Infinity War and Endgame was mostly just stories like this. You're following your main hero or couple heroes in a contained story just with these characters. We don't need 37 different characters and cameos. So like I said, if you have different problems with this movie, I completely understand. This movie is definitely not perfect in any way, shape, or form. But if you're really disappointed in it because it wasn't an Avengers level event like Endgame or Infinity War, then there's something wrong with how you're going into all these movies post-Endgame. This brings me to number 2, which I'm going to call the Rotten Tomatoes effect. Now, obviously, the Rotten Tomato critic scores come out a couple days before the actual movie is open to the public, and certain content creators and stuff get to put out their early reviews. And I think since we saw such a naturally believe that people seeing that this movie got a rotten score already made up their minds if they were going to like or dislike this movie before they even went to go see it. People on the internet do not want to be different. They want to be liked. They want people to agree with them. So when they see that a bunch of people that saw the movie already disliked it and they're critics, we have to look up to their opinion, I feel like a lot of people took that, internalized it in their head, went to see this movie with the goal of looking for every single little thing to hate on it. And now I feel like everybody just throws out the same criticisms of MCU movies, and while some of them are valid, I feel like they weren't really here. People complain about writing, CGI, all that all the time. Literally, this entire movie is CGI, and there's maybe 2 scenes where you can maybe notice it's a green screen, and that's about it. There's nothing really that terrible besides Modoc, which I think is intentionally supposed to look pretty dumb. I feel like ever since Endgame, so many new people have become MCU fans because that was the cool thing to do when Endgame came out, and now that the cool thing to do is kind of just hate on the MCU, that's just what a lot of people are blindly doing without even forming their own opinions. Like I said, I'm not saying nobody that dislikes this movie has a valid opinion. There are plenty of ways I can see why people would just not like this movie, and that is perfectly okay, but that's not what I'm talking about here. I'm talking about the people that just see one video on YouTube that says, oh, this is a terrible movie, and that's just their opinion for the rest of time now. I mean, there's so many people that don't even want to go see this movie now just because it got low critic scores. But now it's time to move on to some aspects of the actual movie. I'm going to go over my thoughts on it here. So let's start with the characters, because a lot of people have been complaining that everybody besides Kang has been putting in bad performances in this movie, and I just can't agree with that. Yes, I do agree, though, that Jonathan Majors is definitely the best actor and best performance in this movie. I think there are definitely other standout performances. I really like Michelle Pfeiffer, and I think her and her performance as Janet in this movie is really a huge reason why Kang worked so well, because her and Kang's backstory and the flashback scenes were really amazing. And I have no complaints about Paul Rudd. People are saying he had bad acting in this movie, and I just can't see that. He was the same charming self, and obviously he was dealing with a little bit more. They tried to play with that and like, I could be doing more, and that is something that I do feel like they abandoned the whole theme about oh, should Scott Lang be doing more than just signing books and writing books and not actually saving the world? He just kind of got thrown into saving the quantum realm, but they didn't really touch on that as much as I feel like they wanted to, and maybe that's something they did touch on more and it got cut down since this movie is only about 2 hours long. But that's definitely something I would have liked to see a little bit more of attacked, but I still think Paula Rudd was great in this movie. Now, I do have to say, I do feel like Hope got a little bit left behind. They really didn't give her any main story points to deal with at all in this movie besides the very end. Obviously, she comes out and kind of saves Scott, but other than that, I feel like it was kind of just put on the back burners for her as well. And obviously Cassie was now the new focus, which I really liked her character. I do feel like she had a few dud lines, which I'll blame on the writers, not the actress. The next thing I want to cover is the plot, which I have no problems with at all. All the Ant-Man movies have been pretty simple heist plots that just have a little bit of a different twist every time. This time it's literally just a quantum heist that ends with a huge battle. I do feel like the beginning was very rushed though, because we kind of just threw ourselves right into the quantum realm. It's like, oh, Cassie just built this thing in her basement, which I'm kind of getting sick of seeing all these geniuses in the MCU. It was very cool with Iron Man, just seeing him build this in a cave, the Iron Man suit, but now it feels like every single character is just magically building all these super advanced things just out of nowhere with no real explanation. And I just would have liked to spend a little bit more time in the regular world before we went to the quantum realm, maybe seeing Cassie just actually use her suit, or maybe she uses it to fight instead of just hearing about it and seeing her locked up in jail. I feel like that could have really built up her character a little bit more instead of just throwing us right into the quantum realm. And in case you're wondering why I didn't talk about Modoc in the character section, it's because I think he actually deserves his own section just because of how controversial this character has been online. So Modoc, what did I think of it? Does he look completely stupid? Yes. Did I laugh out loud at his design and just some of the things he says? Not because they're actually funny, just because, again, it's so stupid. Yes. But I personally went into this movie just looking, like I said, to have a fun time with an Ant-Man movie. They're always silly and goofy, and I felt like this fit the theme of previous Ant-Man movies perfectly. And having Darren be Modoc was a great way to make this feel grounded as an Ant-Man movie. It continues from the very first Ant-Man movie, whereas if it was just some random guy in the quantum realm that was some super serious killer, it would have really felt more out of place than I feel like this goofy version of Modoc did. But I guess this just brings me back around to the beginning, where it all depends on your expectations and what you thought you were going to see in this movie. And like I said, it's not really wrong if you have a certain expectation and a movie doesn't meet it, but I feel like people just go into these Marvel movies now expecting everything to be Endgame, and that's just not what we're going to get. So I give this movie a 4 out of 5. I had a great time in the theater with it. Like I said, I don't love everything. I don't love the ending, don't love the very beginning, but it was a fun quantum adventure. That's all I asked for. I'm excited to see more King in the future. The post-credit scenes were amazing. So let me know what you think of this movie. Rate it 1 through 5 stars in the comments below, and make sure to subscribe for more Marvel videos.